Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Arell, and today I would like to talk about something that's actually near and dear to my heart, and it's about self-love. I think conceptually, it's probably one of the hardest things to do, and I'm not really sure why that is, but I think that we are set up in our society, at least Western society, to be pretty competitive, to be pretty consumed with what's happening on the surface, a little afraid of going in deep, of doing deep self-reflection sometimes, and then kind of confronting our deepest needs, some of which other people can't meet. And so I've been thinking about, what does it mean for us to kind of look at ourselves and get what we need really from ourselves? Now, that does not mean that other people aren't important to that full sense of living, and relationships are critical. Our relationships with other people are so important. But I also think that others can't always give us, because they have things they're doing for themselves. And so what does it look like to really start to examine, feel into, and experiment with self-love? And I can tell you where this question or this thinking recently has come up for me. I just decided to work with a coach, a friend who's going to become a coach, and she's offered some sessions for me. And one of the questions she asked me the other day related to my own talking about my anxiety around looking at the projects that I want to do and trying to schedule all these various activities. Is she said, well, if you sat down and said, what would someone who really loved themselves do? What would that look like in terms of addressing your anxiety? As I thought more and more about this question, what actually came to mind was an image of myself at 8 in second grade, where I had a really tumultuous time at school. And school was always a resource for me, but I have a lot of these kind of heavy memories around being 8. And I had this picture of myself at 8 really, really wanting love from somebody. And the image is at school. And there were a lot of experiences that occurred around that time that triggered this for me. But I did like a meditation around it and started to envision this 8-year-old girl who really needed my love. What was interesting to me in this exercise, which is part of a psychological strategy of doing what's called parts work, is that in my envisioning myself at 8, I was imagining a much older person. And when I did this meditation on giving love to this child who seemed to be needing it, I saw just this little girl who I handed a stuffed animal to, in my mind, I'm doing this all in my mind, who really needed my adult presence and love. And I offer that as an anecdote to you because I think sometimes who or what needs the love are parts of ourselves as we were younger, and maybe not necessarily who we are in our most adult self. You know, when I walk into a room as a professor, I don't really feel a need to have a stuffed animal or to have a hug from somebody. I feel pretty secure of myself. But then when something happens that creates a level of insecurity or anxiety, I can feel that wanting somebody to come in and hug me, and that somebody's not always there. So again, I go back to the question, how do we love ourselves? How do we experience self-love in deep ways that are actually fulfilling? Actually, I just recognized something. Yellow is one of the colors that I use to remind myself of intuition, and I'm wearing a shade of yellow, mustard, but it has some yellow tones, which you can see. In mentioning this, where I'm going in my mind is how to suggest ways to access the energy or the impetus or the experience of what it means to love yourself. And I want to envision that outside of, I can give you rules, set boundaries for yourself, do self-care. Yes, those are ways of self-love. But I want it to be for you on a higher symbolic deeper level. Maybe you could call that a spiritual level. It's also very physical and symbolic, I think. And when I say symbolic, I mean there's things that represent what that means to you, what self-love is, that you can see, that remind you of who you are and bring you back to your deepest, most centered self. And yellow is one of the colors that does that for me. Now, let's back up just a little bit. What are things that you can do to experience or to explore even what it means to express love to yourself? One thing that I've been experimenting with lately related to this topic has to be asking myself, what's something I could do that's just for me? Just for me. That means it's not for school, it's not for work, it's not in relationship to my marriage, it's not in relationship to task setting, it's not in relationship to any external circumstance or person. That includes friendship. To repeat, doing something for yourself that's completely for yourself. Giving yourself time, giving yourself a gift, eating nourishing food, making a choice about how to spend an evening, make a choice about a morning routine, making a choice about what you read, making a choice about what you watch, what you listen to, that's really totally for you. This goes back to a video I did earlier, much earlier, on joy and how to facilitate joy, because I think that the experience of doing something that's just pleasing for yourself often feeds into what it means to have joy. I also really like as a technique doing parts work, and I suggest this to a lot of people. A lot of people will come to talk to me. It's based off of internal family systems, if any of you guys know anything about therapeutic strategies. The idea is that there's some kind of meditative reflection on what part or age of yourself needs the attention at any given moment, and meditating on that and giving your attention as an adult to this little part of self, exploring what that part of self needs, even in your imagination, giving that part of self what he or she or they need, can facilitate this experience of self-love. And thirdly, I would say taking a look at things that feel nice. Putting lotion on, taking a bath, taking a walk, walking barefoot in the sand, sitting next to a tree. What do all of those things feel like physiologically? Petting your pet. I mean, think about what that feels like. How is that, or how are those experiences offering you love? That brings us to thinking more deeply about what love is, which perhaps we address in another video in some more meaningful way. I mean, what that word consists of and what it means to love yourself or love somebody. But for this instance, let's continue to draw back to this idea of feeling on the precipice of joy, of feeling really centered, of feeling capable of moving through the world with clarity and calmness. Those are elements of self-love. Thanks.